I thought this time we'd swing into the Royal Enfield 650 Interceptor. Now, if we go back to 2017, I was at a Royal Enfield dealer and we're there talking away as I'd just gone down to pick up a Classic 500 in the Pegasus model. And I was down there in his shop and they're talking away, and he said to me, are you aware they're bringing out a 650 twin? And I said, no, I haven't heard of that one. Well, he said, it's in the pipeline. He said, a few of the dealers know about it and they've been talking about it, but they're going to bring out a 650 twin and it'll probably rock the Enfield world here, and it'll make almost these Classic 500s obsolete. They'll be that good. I said, yeah, is that right? So he said, you ought to make the most of the one you're buying now, and then when it gets to the stage where they get it in production, ready to release, he said, well, you might have to get rid of the 500s because you might have trouble getting rid of them after the 650 twin makes its debut. So I thought, that was all right. Well, at that stage, like I said, there was nothing around on those particular bikes, and, it was just something that he'd told me, and I'd kept in the back of my head there for a while. But more importantly, I was out there riding that Pegasus around there for a while, and 500 singles were my favourite bike at the time, and I wasn't too concerned about anything coming ahead. But I thought to myself, well, if it should, I might jump on the bandwagon and grab one of those when they first come out. So all was quiet from, that time period, 2017 all through 2018. And then I was talking to another dealer in 2019, and they said, we are now taking orders for the new 650 in the GT version or the Interceptor. And I thought to myself, I've got to be here on one of these. So this dealer was actually a bit closer to me. The other was a little bit further away, and I was thinking I'd take the closer option. So I decided, after a little bit of a talk to him about it, the GT version was more a lean over the bike, similar to when I had the 390 Duke, and that's riding appeal, although it looks sporty, didn't appeal to me that much, where the 650 Interceptor was more just a sit up and beg upright position, and that was the one I was after. So I said to him, I'd like to put my name down and I'll go for one in the first. I'd like one in the first shipment, and I said I'd like the chrome one. Now, unfortunately, things would never go the way what you expect they're going to go, and when the time come, and we'll get now in 2019 the delivery date, I got a call from the dealer saying to me at that stage, got some good and bad news for you. And I said, oh yeah? The good news is your Interceptor arrived. So that was the good side of it. The bad side was sorry, but the chrome version's never come in, and the one that's been allocated to us is ravishing red. So as far as that goes, well, I was thinking to myself, well, I had me sort of heart set on that chrome version, but, the ravishing red, when I went back and I'd look at a couple of photos, what they'd sent me, didn't look too bad. So I said to them, yeah, okay, all good. We'll go ahead with that deal and I'll take that bike. So, the reason being they were in a hot property at the time, these 650 Interceptors, and if I would have knocked back that bike, it was 3 to 6 months wait to get the one I'm after. So that was all right. We're down, bought the bike. Best thing about the, seeing it was a base model sort of in the colour compared to the chromes with their top line of bike, I think overall it only cost something like $500 more to buy then than what a Classic 500 cost. And I think if I put it compared to the Pegasus, there was only a couple of $100 difference, because Pegasus was 10 grand right away. So that bit aside, I got the bike home. After I did a bit of a checkout down there, got the bike home, and was really impressed by what a good-looking bike it was for the extra few $100 over it. Yeah, so if you like the idea of looking at a few bike reviews, like why not subscribe, and then if you like the content, hit the like button, because over the period I've had bikes, like most of them, what I've had now are still available off the showroom floor. So, on average, I've probably lately been buying 5 bikes a year, I suppose, go through 5, so that'd be a fair call. So overall on these reviews you'll have something like 30 bikes to choose from, or what I'm going to put up. There's a lot more than that one, but some of them repeat. You know, if I purchase X amount of Enfields, you only want to hear a review on 1 or 2 of the classic 500s. You don't want to hear a review on 15 of them. So that bit aside, I've worked out I've got 30 clips coming, so in total. So that should be something to work about. So we'll swing back now to the info now on the 650 Interceptor. So I get this 650 Interceptor home, bring it out, unload it out of the van. I usually go and pick them up in the van. Never once have I ridden a new bike home. So I usually pick them up in the van or get them delivered, whatever the case is. Actually, I don't think I'd go for delivery now because I was paying $500 a throw to get them delivered, and I think on today's market they'd want a lot more because all prices are going up in all areas. So anyway, I get the bike home, and I tell you what, I really was impressed with this bike. Like, I'd been going through quite a few bikes, and I was thinking to myself when I got it there, this ravishing red for a few $100s more than the classic 500, it was just unreal. So there you are, you got a twin cylinder bike putting out 47 horsepower. It's got dual channel ABS, and more importantly, it's just a really good looking bike. So I thought, well, I might make a few clips on this one if it's any good, because the proof's always in the pudding, and I hadn't been on it for a test ride or anything like that. I just bought it blind. So that was all right. I load her up and get on the bike, and away I go. I've got all my camera gear set up on it, and I'm riding along there, and I'm thinking within 200 metres or so from where I left, oh shit, this is a really good bike to ride. And the more I rode it, the more excited I got. So in the end, I started using a lot of describing words, you could say, and the F word bomb came out quite a few times on the test ride I put up. And more importantly, it wasn't a test ride with the F's slandering somebody was doing it. It was just saying, this is a effing good bike. I can't believe how good the effing clutch is. That was all right. I went there like that, and I thought to myself, you know, I'd been watching a few of the other blokes, some of the watch reviewers, and I've heard them call people FCs, everything else like that, and no one bats an eye. Yes, so to cut a long story short, after I was reported for swearing and using the F word on it, that was enough for YouTube to pull the channel. So that was the first bit of bad luck with the ravishing red. It was really responsible for the channel being wiped out totally, and I had to start again from scratch. And number 2 was, I got a full tank of petrol with the bike when I got it, and then I got to the stage at around 300 kilometres where I drained the tank, as in rode all the petrol out of it, and I went to do a tank fill up, and the key got jammed in the lock and petrol cap and couldn't get it out. So I thought, more bad luck. So in the end, after trying several attempts to get that key out, I rang this qualified locksmith that was here for working for 10 or 15 years in the area, said he could unlock anything. So he came up here and spent a half an hour trying to undo the lock, and he had no luck either. And I thought, geez, I've had enough of this. It was just too much for me. So either that, I think I put it on, I think I put it on Gumtree and sold it within 24 hours, something like that. Guy come and bought it from Albury, and he was fairly happy. He saved himself a couple of $1,000 or more on the bike and took it back home, drilled out the lock. And prior to this, I'd already spoke to Enfield about it. They said there was nothing they could do about it. Sorry about that. There's no spares in stock because it was a brand new release bike. And the only way out of that would have been they got to send to India and get me a new ignition barrel, new wiring harness, and anything that's got to do with the keys, those wirings have to be replaced too. So the whole bike had to be rekeyed. So when that happened, I explained that to the bloke who was buying it. That's why you're getting it cheap. Didn't worry him. Sort of didn't worry me much. Remember, at that stage, I really wanted the chrome anyway. I'd had a bit of fun on it, rode it 300 Ks. So I let that go. And, overall, I look back and see a couple of photos of it. It's not a bad-looking bike. So we've now fast-forwarded another few months, and all of a sudden I get this phone call from the dealer. And the dealer says, "Are you still interested in one of those chrome Interceptors?" I said, "Oh, yeah, for sure." He said, "Good. One's just arrived in stock. Do you want it?" I said, "Yep, So he told me the price, and I went ahead, got the wife to transfer the money to him that day, I think it was, and then he confirmed that because a couple other people at this stage wanted to come in and have a look at it too. So in most cases, they know that I don't fool them around. So that was all right. I got that bike, brought it home, and even though the Chrome Interceptor was all right after I got it here, and I did a fair few kilometres on that Chrome one, I did something like, I think 8,000 or 9,000 kilometres. I often look back and think there was really nothing wrong with the Ravishing Red, and how long if I would have kept that bike, providing it would have, if I could have put petrol in it. That was the only thing. So anyway, what I found out riding these Interceptors was, one, they are a silky smooth motor. So we'll talk to the good points. The good points for the 650 Interceptor would be they are really a smooth motor. I would say one of the smoothest motors I've been on. Now, believe it or not, the only motor I've sat on a bike which I think is smoother than the 650 Interceptor has been, it was a Honda PCX 160 scooter. Like, that particular scooter I got on, and I had to sometimes check to see if it was running. It was that smooth, it was unbelievable. But, even when I got the Interceptor, I did the old water trick, you put the container of water on the tank for a video, and because taking into account once my channel was pulled down the first time, once that was gone, I had to start from scratch again. So 2019, I think it was, I started this channel again from scratch, different name, but all that material was gone, and once it goes, you don't get it back. They just wipe you right out. So you'd have to start from scratch, get yourself your subs, everything like that. So it was a fair build-up, and that's why probably a few bikes came in after that period to sort of get a bit of momentum going and stuff like that. But what I find out with the good points on one is that silky, smooth motor. Like, without a doubt, it was just hard to believe after riding classic 500s all the time how good a motor that 650 was. It was just so good. Like, no one would believe it. If you've been riding classic 500s and you get on an Interceptor, you've got no idea how good that bike or motor is until you get on it. Then you get out along the road after you give them a bit of a run in, and as far as that goes, how easy they cruise along at 100 kilometres an hour, which is our legal limit around here. They just do it so easy, like no effort whatsoever. They'll run along at 100 kilometres an hour. And, even on the petrol side, the brakes are good too. So overall, there's not much you can look at a 650 Interceptor and say what's wrong and what's not. So they would be the positive points that, if you said to me, would you buy another Interceptor? I probably would, but we have to take into account that I also, after I was on two Interceptors for a while, I also missed the outright looks of a Classic 500, or in this case now Classic 350 Reborn single, because as much as I hate to disappoint anyone, as good as the Interceptor is, I still don't think the eye appeal's as good as a Classic 500 or Classic 350. Even though the Interceptor's a better bike. Like, I'm not here throwing shit on Interceptors or anything like that. The Interceptor's definitely a better bike than the Classic 500, no risk. Is it a better bike than the Classic 350 Reborn? Don't know. Classic 350 Reborn's a really good bike, and I think the only way out of it is just buy both, and then you cover yourself in both areas, and there's no drama that way. So if you said to me, what were the bad points of riding an Interceptor? I think two things come to mind. One, that's a pretty crappy seat, what they put on those Interceptors. Like, it's just like a plank with a bit of covering on it. Now, if you ask me, have I been on worse seats? Yeah, I've been on worse seats. I had a PCX 160 scooter, no correction, an ADV 160 Honda scooter. That was really bad. And as much as I hate to say it, the Verzi X300 had a really bad seat on it too. So seat-wise is one of the main drawbacks with that particular bike, but I think you can buy, well, I don't think I know, on mine I bought a lot of accessories from when I had them, and I put the aftermarket touring seat on, which was better than that stock one for not much more money. So that'd have been the main thing. Now, if you're on an Interceptor for the very first time, the other thing is it's going to be annoying. You're going to have trouble changing gears. And the reason being, with that shifter and the width of the pedals, you'll find that if your foot's in the position what you're on a normal bike and you go changing, you'll just miss the gear shifter, totally miss it, and you wonder what went wrong. So the idea is when you're on a Interceptor, you've got to learn to point your toe in towards the casing of the motor and do the changes that way. So that would be number 2 in the annoying thing with them. But it's something, like I said, the more you ride the bike, in the end you just forget about it. But what you don't forget about is if you're going along and you want to, say, pull up and you decide you're going to reverse back, you put your feet down on the ground and sure enough, that bloody left-hand foot peg hits you in the shins because they stick out too far because you're sitting on it like you got bow legs. So that side, 3 things I think would be the main ones to look at, like if you can put up with those, get yourself a better seat, make sure you point your toe in on the gear changer, and the other side is, those foot pegs. I don't know now, they may have aftermarket foot pegs which can help you out in that way, because like everything, and if any faults that come out and something, they usually get it like that. And, some aftermarket firm brings out something that's sort of more attractive in that line and solves that problem. Now, like I said earlier, the first thing I experienced was a tyre problem, and that was around about 6,500 kilometres. And the tyres on these were Pirelli. And later on when they found out, or it came out that Pirelli had a couple of places in the world where they manufactured tyres, and even though they were a top brand tyre, it appears this particular tyre on these bikes was roughly a couple of mils, shallower in the tread pattern than the other one. So a lot of people come to the conclusion these tyres weren't really made as good as their good stuff, and most likely, I don't know, who knows? Their manufacturer might have done a deal with them and got a huge amount of tyres at a good price, and it went like that way. But either way, a lot of people reported this wobble problem, and in the end, it was too much for me because every time I went over one section at around about 80 kilometres an hour, it went into a sideway wobble, and it was a bit scary. And I decided then to rip those tyres off and put on, I think they were Battle Axe tyres, and it could have been AX41, I'm not sure, but it was something like that. I'd have to go back in my files and check out, but the main thing is once I swapped the tyres, the area where I thought I'd had trouble with the steering and everything like that was not the problem. It was definitely tyre related. Once the new tyres went on it, I had no trouble with it whatsoever after that, and it ran really well. Now, probably about 500 kilometres after that, one day I go out there to start. I hadn't been on it for a while, and it didn't want to start. So that was okay. I got the battery charge out, charged the battery right up. But the strange thing about it, the battery was showing full charge. So anyway, I went and had another go at it, no luck at again. So then I thought to myself, well, I started the normal things what you'd go around, first on checking the side stand switch. And, I've already checked the battery and that was fine. Didn't seem anything was wrong. I looked under there, see if any sensors had been loose or shaken. And more importantly, battery terminals were connected tightly. All that was good. Went to the fuse relays and pulled those out, and they were covered with this white sort of a grease. So I got some electronics cleaner on it and cleaned that all up. Dried them out, with a hairdryer, just give them a hit over with that one. Put them back in, and the bike started. And I thought, it's either coincidence or there's something wrong with those relays. So in the meantime, I bought a lot of stuff off Hitchcock's for other bikes, and I recall them there saying that they sold heavy-duty relays. So I got back to Hitchcock's, and I had that other bike here at the time. I think it was a gunmetal grey by that time. And I sent over and bought about 8 or 10 of them because I decided I'd do both bikes. And buying them from Hitchcock's, the advantage is they sell pretty good stuff. And more importantly, but you have to pay a fair bit for the freight to get them here, so I might as well do both bikes while I was at it. So that's what I did. I ordered those, and when I got the heavy-duty ones, I compared them with the other one. Now, the heavy-duty ones have got more sort of some sort of resin coating underneath where the terminals are and are a lot heavier, where the other ones are just plastic underneath and just junk. Later on, it was revealed a lot of people have had this trouble with these relays worldwide in different bikes, whether it was Interceptor, Himalayan, Media, Classic, the whole lot. And it had come from a bad batch of relays. So what I'm saying, if you happen to get one of these bikes and you're around that era, I wouldn't go to a local dealer and buy them that way, because chances are they might be holding new old stock. I would order direct off Hitchcock's and get their one, because I put them in both bikes, and I think later on I end up putting it in the trials too. So, I put them in a few of the bikes after that, and then I had no trouble after that. So that's something for you to think about. And they were the two main areas I had in it, and then after that I rode it trouble-free, I think, for another 1,500 kilometres till I thought the time was over for me and the Interceptors. And the main reason I went back to, after that, I had one more thing. I hit at a Classic 500, because after all, I'd been on that many of them and they were my favourite bike. I just felt better when I was riding the Classic 500 compared to the Interceptor. Even though the Interceptor did everything well, I was still steered towards driving that 500 single. And as much as I hate to say it, when the Classic 350 Reborn came out, I thought after I bought two of those to start with. One, because I thought, just in case there's a problem with, I'll buy a reserve too. And the original one turned out to be that good after, 13,000 kilometres. There was no point in keeping the reserve. And I got rid of the reserve one because, like I said, it was just sitting there doing nothing. But I thought, well, going on a new release model, they weren't all that much to buy, 8,000 or 9,000, depending on what one you wanted. And the thing is, I thought I might as well have two to cover my arse in case I strike any problem. But they were that reliable, there was really no need. So, naturally Enfield has really upped its game since the 650 Interceptor. I think that was the big thing. The 500s are really dinosaurs compared to the new stuff. So that's only my thought there. You might get onto it and say your 500's the best bike you've ever been on. But, I don't know. I've been on a lot of new bikes lately. And, as much as I like the 500, I still like that 350 Reborn back. Okay, while we're at it, I just might recap on a couple of things on this bike, and I haven't mentioned it earlier, so I better do it now. Now, if by chance you've got one of these Interceptors and you're going over, everything's running well along a smooth road, and then all of a sudden you hit a couple of bumps and you hear a clunk up in the front suspension area, well, I experienced that one in the chrome version, and a guy in the UK, he was making these front suspension spacers. I think they were 10 mil in depth or something to that effect. But I did a review on them going back in the history on them. But the fact is, for about $50 a pair, compared to other ways of pulling the springs out and putting heavier oil and stuff like that, I found for the $50 outlay when I got those pair of spacers, and they're fairly easy to fit yourself, that they work pretty good and greatly improved it, because I went out and did a review on it. It's somewhere back in the history on the bikes, because there's a lot of views there, a lot of clips there to watch, and more importantly, I did one on those and show how well it ran over bumps for $50 outlay. So that's something for you to think about. So I thought I'd better bring that up, because I did experience that issue with it. And one other thing I experienced with this chrome was when I was riding in the early stages, I was getting quite a few false neutrals up around 5th and 6th gear. Now, you know how you get on YouTube and you listen to these creators and they tell you what you should buy and what you shouldn't and stuff like that. And, you go out and buy that stuff and then you get it home and you do it or fit it to the bike and it turns out shit and you say that's more money wasted. Well, I was actually listening to one of those golden voices in those days, and the word for the best oil you could buy for these bikes was fully synthetic silcoline oil. So that was all right. I thought, I'll try it. Now, I couldn't get any local, So I had to bring it in from Sydney. So by the time I bought the 5 or 6 litre container, whatever it was, not sure now, and got it here, it worked out around about $140 just to buy the oil. Now, this was supposed to be the best oil, or the bee's knees, you could say, in oil, and the best you could get. And so that was all right. I put it in the bike, took it and tested it over around about 300 to 500 kilometres, somewhere in that thing. And the bloody stuff was no better than anything else. Now, at that stage, that was on the first oil change. So I'd already had the factory oil in, went to this stuff and ran it for somewhere between 300 and 500 kilometres, and thought, what a bloody total waste of money. So then I went back to the oil I'd been used on the Classic 350, because I did have Classic 350s in UCEs, and also the same oil I used in the Classic 500, what a dealer told me about back in 2012. Yeah, so that oil was Penrite 10W50, gas 10, and I think it was only roughly about half the price of the other, around $70 I think it was against $140. So overall, that greatly improved the ride experience and helped as far as reducing quite a few of the neutrals. In the end, I think I had the bike running really well, so it just goes to show you, sometimes, you think you're buying the best oil you can get, and it's only good for the person or company that's selling it, you should say. So, that's something to look at in that line. In all honesty, I don't care whether you buy that and put it in your bike or not. I couldn't care less because, I can only tell it how I've seen it. You might get there now and say your view Silkaline's the best oil you can get, and if so, good for you. But back to this side here, the other side would be with this bike. Speaking here in Australia, we've got a choice of 91 unleaded, then we got 95, and then we got 98 for the premium type stuff. I did in this particular bike, I ran 95 and then 98, which was the best one you can sort of buy here at the moment. And I found there was really not much difference. So in the end, I just ran at 95 all the time. So, that was, easy way out of it. And back to those tyres, those Pirelli Phantoms, if you pick up one of these and they've got those on them and you do experience that little bit of a wobble or anything like that, that might be an idea to look at your tyres, because even at mine at 6,500 when it happened, the tyres still looked all right. But like I said, I think it was proven for sure that whether the Pirelli Phantoms were coming from South America, where they were made in the Pirelli factory there, or some other part, there just was a difference between them. And, as far as me, I'd never buy them to put on it. Although, it was a good publicity thing when Enfield's come out saying, they had Pirelli Phantoms, and you're thinking, really top tyres on a cheap bike. But I think they were cheaper tyres on a top bike. Now, also, you might have heard me mention a few times of I will do a cross-reference from a Classic 500 or a Classic 350 Reborn to the Interceptor itself. And the reason being mainly is because, the Interceptor comes in at 200 kilos, and when you do a cross-reference on a Classic 500 or the new 350 Reborn, they come in at 195. So there's not much difference between the bikes in weight. You probably couldn't pick the difference in weight, but I would say, if you said which bike I think is a better balance to those three, I don't know, I think I'd almost be inclined to go for the single. But, I just thought it was a little bit of better balanced bike when you were sitting on it. But don't get me wrong, if you're out on the market and you want to buy yourself an Interceptor and you want to go 2 up, you want to cruise at 100, 120 kilometres an hour, 130, you'll find that bike runs along with no trouble whatsoever at those speeds. More importantly, compared to a vibrating 500, you're going to have really smooth in the handlebars, you're going to have it good in the foot pegs, and you're going to have it way better than a 350 because for a start you've got double the power over that. And so overall it'd be a good, pleasant experience, and even though I said to you my favourite one's the Classic 350 Reborn, if they ever brought out a 500 series in the J motor, I'd buy one of those immediately because, a 500 will easily beat the 350 Reborn in outright performance and pulling hills and stuff like that. So naturally, if they ever brought out a 500, I'd go in that direction. But while I'm at it, I suppose I better tell you, in case somebody says, oh, you never get much specs on these bikes. Well, you know, apart from they weigh in at 200 kilos, their fuel tank's around 13.7 litres. They've got a naturally 6-speed box. They've got front and rear discs with ABS on it. So I think it's about a 320 at the front and 220 or 240 or something like that at the rear. Doesn't matter much. I don't worry about whether the bloody specs are 10 mil over or under, as long as the bike rides and stops all right. So you've got 18-inch front and rear tyres. So overall, I think I've represented this fairly well. I think if you buy one of these and, you know, go a couple of those tips I give you, it may be helpful. Somebody suggested I should put all these reviews I'm doing in a playlist, which I might do. And that way, if anyone comes in looking at the bike, and there'll be about 30 of them there, so, you know, we'll see how things go on that line. So, once again, what I might do at the end of this, I'll let you have a listen to that, a longer version of that. If you're still listening now, you might want to hear that sports exhaust I put on that Interceptor, the chrome one, and I'll give you a bit of a lengthier play on that one there, and you'll be able to hear it idling away, and then when I give it a little bit of a hit, but it was a growler. I'd only heard, you know, that exhaust sounded that good. The only exhaust on a motorcycle I'd hear better than that was I had a Triumph 875 with an Arrow exhaust on it, and when you cracked the throttle on that one, believe it or not, it was that loud, it would vibrate the veranda underneath. It would shake the bloody, just the sound of it. Now, this one was all right, but that Arrow exhaust on that Triumph was one mean mother. Anyway, apart from that, we'll call it quits, and I'll catch up with you on the next clip, and hopefully you'll give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in subscribing, please do, because there's more Enfield content coming on different bikes, plus a host of other bikes. There's too many there to talk about, but I'll go through them. I've got the material on it, so I might as well put it up and see how it goes. So cheers for now. Okay, I was told you turn the key on, pull this choke out, pull the clutch in, press the button. Away it goes. Oh well, you probably heard it by now. You wouldn't call it quiet.